from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Friday night edition of the program. We're live and national. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And big story of the day, the big, beautiful bill has been delayed. Was it because of the Democrats? No, because of Republicans. Some Republicans, I guess standing on principle, decided that they were not going to vote to advance the big, beautiful bill. And we're going to get into a conversation on that in a little bit. That was one of the big stories of the day. What else? There was another one. Oh, and here's another big story. Let me see if this, Count Delacula, help me out if there's any updates to this. Last I checked, this had not happened yet. But the Congresswoman from New Jersey, LaMonica McIver, Democrat from New Jersey, is, let's see. Okay, there is an update. So there was an article at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon that said McIver is set to be charged over the Delaney Hall incident. But as of 5 p.m., it says the Justice Department does not appear to be bringing charges against McIver today. The timing of when it will do so is unclear. So earlier reports said that she was expected to turn herself in today and has already retained counsel. And the counsel she retained, the former United States Attorney for the District of New Jersey, former Attorney Fishman. So I'll keep you updated on that as it goes down. But that is the big story, at least the afternoon was one of the big stories, that the Congresswoman that shoved the ICE person, and very aggressively, will be charged by the United States Attorney's Office in the District of New Jersey. And that, of course, is Alina Habba, with the intention of charging LaMonica McIver. So I'll keep you updated on that as there are updates available to share. Let me see. There was another big thing I wanted to get into today. Well, there's also the conversations we're going to have tonight, right? Because there's a few very interesting topics that I want to talk about. Pardon my distraction, because there's a lot going on Capitol Hill that I want to get to, but there's also healthcare, right? There's healthcare, the cost of prescription drugs. That was a big thing earlier this week. I want to have some reaction to that, as well as talking about mental health. May is Mental Health Month, and I always feel like I am a little bit of a poster child for mental health, right? My ADHD is in check certain days. It's not other days. I don't take any medication for it. I kind of refuse to do that. I kind of like to live dangerously with the impulsivity and forgetfulness and occasional irritability and all of that fun stuff, because I don't know, I just didn't like taking the medication for that. I don't know if any of you have ever tried that stuff, but it works for a little bit, but then it's like, whoa, it's like a lot. Anyway, that's a little TMI for you, a little bit of an overshare because it's Friday. And of course, we're going to do some Ask Richie a little bit later. That's always a fun segment to do. Haven't done it in a while. And the intent of it is to be like a Dear Abby, for me to give you unsolicited advice from someone that shouldn't be giving advice. And that's what kind of makes it funny. So we'll do a little bit of that. And let me see. What else? There was something else I wanted to get here. There was a clip of audio I wanted to play for you. But it's all a lot. And I don't know if we'll have enough time to play all of that stuff. So anyway, I want to come back to something I mentioned yesterday. And that was the James Comey seashell gate, if you will, right? I know a lot of people up in arms about this, and I think it's disgusting. I mean, I said that on the air. I think that it's stupid for him to do this. I believe that you have to hold yourself to a certain standard, right? When you are the former FBI director, a former president, former anything, right? When you've held some sort of position, I think people are looking at you more than they're looking at me, is I guess what I'm saying. So it's up to you whether you want to live up to that standard that is perceived of you or not. And it's okay if you don't, right? And he's obviously chosen not to. I think he should. For example, President Trump. Before President Trump was president, he said all sorts of things about all sorts of people. Then he served as president, and during his term, he said a lot of things about a lot of people. But after he served as president, I saw a complete change in his rhetoric. If you look at the way he speaks now versus then, I mean, it's night and day. Now, some people will say that's because of the assassination attempt. Maybe he has a new appreciation for things. But I think it's also because he has a different appreciation for the gravity of certain things. Now, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have a great deal of bombast and, he doesn't say stuff off the cuff. Sure he does. But he's a lot better. I don't say better. I should say he's a lot more focused is the word I'll use. And I don't think he was unfocused before. I think it was more that I'm going to go with experienced, right? Maybe that's the right word I'm looking for. He's a lot more experienced and realizes the gravitas, the weight of his statements. And I think only experience can teach you that. And this is where I think that the biggest failure with Comey was. Right now he seems to be backpedaling. Oh, I found the seashells like that. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant to cancel him because he shouldn't be president. Oh, he's whatever he's saying, right? Because he's seeing that there's a lot of outrage over this. And I get it. But he could also make if he really wanted to be believable, he'd really double down and say, look, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you guys misunderstood this thing, and I didn't mean for it to be taken like that. I mean, it's no question that I've been critical of President Trump, but I don't want the guy dead. Jeez, he was shot at already. There was 2 assassination attempts on him, a third that we talked about last night that didn't happen, but it was a plot, and I'm sure there's been others. So he didn't take that route, right? He just basically made a statement about whatever, saying no, that wasn't the intention, and that's it. And to me, this is done in very bad taste because when you are a person like him, that ran a federal law enforcement agency that, to my chagrin, had a lot of emphasis on counterintelligence, one might think something if you put these, thinly veiled, coded, sublime messages there. People might think that it's, a call for action. And if I did it, they go, what a clown, right? This guy is an a-hole. But when he does it, it has that much more weight because of who he was. And again, that's my take. I don't think he should have done it. I also think that he's free to say what he wants, right? I mean, and he's chosen to do that. And it's up to us to, whether this is a drive-by mention, a throwaway story, which I believe it is. But I'm sure a lot of my counterparts, colleagues, and others in the conservative media space would disagree, and they're outraged, and they're entitled to be outraged. I'm not as outraged. I think the good things that President Trump are doing far outweigh any dumb stuff that any Democrat is saying right now. Honestly, the video evidence of LaMonica McIver shoving and swinging at the ICE agent in Newark, New Jersey, at Delaney Hall, to me is a lot more actionable than Comey putting some seashells together, making a stupid message. What I think Comey deserves is jail for other things, right? For his intent, at least what I would suspect his intent to be, with the Clinton memo, with so many things he's done. I mean, this is a guy that, not only because he's a giant, but you just can't, you can't trust him as far as you can throw him. And all those, there's a million reasons that to not trust him, to not like him. But I don't think this is one of them. Now, I've heard people that are a lot wiser than I say, you know what? There are federal laws against this stuff. And I guess it really comes down to, is this a threat? Is it a threat for him to put a photo saying, 8647? Is that a threat, or is that more like, his wishful thinking because he's a scumbag? I can't answer that question. But he better have an answer to it, because apparently there's authorities that are going to look into it. And if there is any intent behind that, boy, oh boy. Now, given what I know, I'm not going to be naive and say that it was just wishful thinking. Perhaps there is more to it. I do know that these guys, Andrew McCabe, if you look at those text transcripts, if I'm going to use guilt by association, yeah, Andrew McCabe couldn't stand El Trompito, right? His girlfriend, the other one, and Peter Strzok and his girlfriend, they also couldn't do it. I mean, none of them were able to stomach El Trompito vis-a-vis the American people as well, right? Because he was representing us. So that's where I land on this. I think it's much ado about nothing. I really do. I think that he's not going to be the last person to make a stupid comment like that. I think it's good that he gets called to the carpet, because he is a former FBI director, and as such, he should comport himself accordingly. Have some couth, have some pride for the position that you once held, and have some respect for the country. But that's up to him, and I can't change the fact that, who he is, right? What choices he makes, what type of integrity he chooses to espouse. That I can't do. So we'll see what happens with it. And maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, I'll be the first one to say, look, I didn't think that was a threat per se, but it totally could be. So if you think I'm wrong, give me a call. 833-482-5337, 8334 And straight ahead, I want to talk about the big, beautiful bill. Did Republicans tank this because they're just trying to stand on principle and make sure that this is the right deal moving forward? Or was there more political concerns? Well, we're going to talk about that and so much more on what's happening on Capitol Hill when we return with our good friend Kerry Pickett from the Washington Times. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The clerk shall report.
Mr. Chair, on the vote, there were 16 ayes and 21 noes.
Well, the noes have it. The committee stands in recess, subject to the call of the chair. I want to thank everybody for their time and patience, and Godspeed and safe travels.
That is the final vote count on the big, beautiful bill, which, of course, includes the elements that would lead to no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, and no tax on Social Security. And this was tanked today. I'm going to use the word tanked, or paused, as some are saying, by Republican Congressman Chip Roy from Texas, Josh Brashear from Oklahoma, Andrew Clyde of Georgia, and Ralph Norman of South Carolina, who all voted against the legislation. And a fifth House Republican, Lloyd Smucker of Pennsylvania, also switched his vote from yes to no. It was a procedural maneuver, according to the article in Fox News I'm referencing, that allows him to bring the legislation up again. Smucker told reporters that he was quite confident in the bill's success. So I think these guys are on board with the big, beautiful bill, but they had some very particular reasons about not going for it. So to get some analysis on this, I want to go to somebody I consider a pro. She's been at this for a long time. I've seen her on TV. She's a very experienced reporter in D.C. She's the White House correspondent for the Washington Times. Carrie Pickett, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Rich.
You bet. So let's talk about this. I know that, the White House is your beat, and obviously the White House has a very strong interest in seeing this bill advanced. Talk to me about what's going on. Were any of these Republicans trying to tank this thing? I don't think they are. I think they're just concerned about some principled items. Am I wrong?
No, you're actually pretty much right there. The Republicans who voted against this bill, they wanted firmer commitments to deep spending cuts, and they wanted a faster timetable to enact work requirements for Medicaid and phasing out clean energy tax credits, measures that the legislation delays until 2029. So let's get into some of that. So specifically, Medicaid. That is a big bugaboo that is something that, like a big third rail that Republicans never really wanted to touch for years on end. Oh, no, we can't touch Medicaid, no, because it'll hurt us in our reelection efforts and so on and so forth. And finally, Republicans, a number of them said, hey, hold on a second here. Medicaid is reserved for individuals who are disabled, who are vulnerable, who are sick. And you have too many people who are ripping off Medicaid, who are able-bodied, who actually can work, and are essentially stealing it from people who are all these other things, who are disabled, who are sick, who are vulnerable. And it's time, and who also are, by the way, not American. And it's time to start reforming it. And we can't keep spending money on Medicaid on people who shouldn't be getting it. And in this bill right now, we're still spending money on Medicaid for people who shouldn't be getting it. And so that is a big issue right now for these four Republicans that you just mentioned, who said, we're still not reforming it still. We're still paying way too much into it. So that is one of the big issues that they have talked about, and they're all four of them. Andrew Clyde also brings up, he is big on the Second Amendment, like many Republicans, but he owns a gun store down in Georgia. And one of the things that this particular bill does, it does eliminate the $200 tax stamp on a particular gun measure, but not on all of the transfer and gun measures, on all of the excise taxes and all the gun regulations that basically cost people when they end up buying firearms, and basically.
So it's not just the Medicaid stuff, Carrie Pickett, right? There's also some Second Amendment concerns. So you know what? Let's pause right here. We're going to come right back and pick up where you left off with this Second Amendment issue. Plus, I had a follow-up about the state's contribution to the federal contribution to Medicaid. So, folks, we're coming right back with White House correspondent to the Washington Times, Carrie Pickett, and me, Rich Valdez. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The so-called big, beautiful bill just failed to clear the House Budget Committee. Now, this is the legislative package that is expected to deliver President Trump's domestic priorities. President Trump earlier today posting to Truth Social saying Republicans must unite behind the one big, beautiful bill. We don't need grandstanders in the Republican Party. Stop talking and get it done. The proposed bill includes cuts to Medicaid and food stamps. It's part of an effort to slash spending by at least $880 billion to help pay for tax cuts. Now, two key votes came from these Republican Congress members, Representatives Ralph Norman and Chip Roy. They are two conservatives who say the cuts just don't go far enough. Other Republican no votes came from Representatives Clyde and Brackeen.
That is, again, what we're talking about here, this the holdouts on the big, beautiful bill for Republicans that did not jump on board. And our guest, White House correspondent for the Washington Times, Kerry Pickett. So, Kerry Pickett, we left off with you telling us a little bit about why some of these guys were not interested in voting yes today. And one of the reasons you said was Congressman Clyde referencing Second Amendment issues. Tell us more.
Yeah, I just want to be a little more specific when I said while there was a elimination of the $200 tax stamp on the suppressor provision that's been going on for years now, there still isn't an elimination of taxes on other gun measures and a transfer taxes that aren't eliminated. That's a one thing. However, if you go into other issues that are being brought up, there's also issues where they're talking about wind and sort of green energy issues when they talk about saying, hey, look, we're looking to repeal this stuff, but it's not going to materialize until much later, perhaps maybe in 2031. The problem is, and I believe Josh Brackeen brought this up, is like, well, the moment 2031 begins to roll around, then the lobbyists begin to descend upon Capitol Hill and say, hey, can we possibly save this? Yeah, and that's like something that he has problems with, because he's like, look, we have to start focusing in on oil. We have to start focusing in on the natural gas stuff, because all these green energy components, where are they coming from? Oh, they're coming from China. So that's a big problem that he has. Also, you have the issue on the deficit. Chip Roy brought this up, and he's saying like the fact of the matter is, on the spending that we're dealing with here, is that the tax cuts and the spending of the they're like massively front loading a deficit increase. The deficits are going to go up in the first half of the 10-year budget window, and that
right, because of the size of the bill.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the bill has a
So let me ask you on that one, though. What indication are you getting from any of your sources? I don't think that changes, right? We're not going to change the size of a big, beautiful bill. It's kind of like, hey, we have to pass this big, beautiful bill to make things better. And it's likely better than we've seen in the past. It fixes a lot of issues with the tax cuts and whatnot. But it's still a big expense. That's not going to change. So people that have that concern, are they expected to not have that concern all of a sudden?
Well, look, they're going to have to start thinking about what they're going to have to cut out, period. And look, it isn't just these four Republicans. There's also a number of California and New York Republicans who are waiting in the wings.
Right, they're just not influencing the budget process, the committee vote. But once it goes through a full floor vote, we're going to see the show.
Exactly, because right now, as you just rightfully mentioned, this is what happened over in the budget committee. Yeah, I mean, we haven't even stepped out of that panel yet. And the moment this gets to the floor, then you're going to have all the New York and all the California Republicans being like, wait, hold on a second here. What about the SALT deductions? You've only raised that up to what, $30,000? I mean, they are still very upset about that.
Yeah,
And
we'll see how that goes.
that's something that, yeah, exactly.
'Cause
So,
I don't expect that to change that much. And I mean, maybe I'm just not optimistic. Are you? Are you optimistic that that'll change?
I think they're eventually going to come to a compromise, because ultimately the SALT deduction is something that they have been
Yeah, they've been hitting that hard.
really talking about it, for a very long time. I mean, the House tax plan tripled the SALT deduction cap to about $30,000 about 4 days ago, and the House Republican SALT caucuses, they balked at that. Are you kidding us? But they're going to have to eventually find some sort of common ground, because if they don't pass this in time, the Republicans are going to have a really bad hand in terms of pleasing their own constituents, because they have to pass something. And on top of that, these tax cuts are going to expire.
Right.
And
that's the big deal.
And yeah, exactly. And Republicans, they pretty much all agree, minus maybe a very small handful, that the top tax rate even needs to stay where it is. Regardless of what Trump has said, saying, I'd be okay if it goes up to 40, but it would look bad because politically it could hurt me, and so on and so forth. But still, he does really need to make sure that those tax cuts stay in place, because it could hurt him come the midterms, because if the Republicans lose the House, then everyone pretty much knows where that could possibly lead. Well, then it's impeachment time.
Yeah, and nothing will get done legislatively.
Right. Yeah. And we're going to have gridlock.
Yeah, we don't want that. Folks, we're on with Carrie Pickett, White House correspondent for the Washington Times. And straight ahead, we're going to discuss a piece that she has that discusses the controversial and age-old topic of reparations. Yep, that's back in the news. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Because we are grateful for the leadership of the lawmakers, the Black history makers who have shepherded and stewarded this. But there is a movement, as Congresswoman Jackson spoke to, that continues to gain momentum throughout the country. So it's not just Black folks that are self-interested in this. This is people of conscience that recognize the power and the necessity of the work of truth and reconciliation and healing. And there is precedent. We have done this for Native American, for indigenous people. We have done this for Japanese Americans. So when people say, well, my family didn't own slaves, why should I care about this? Well, we were able to do truth, reconciliation, and the work of the reparative work for Japanese Americans, and not everybody played a role in that either. So that is what brings us here today, and I'm excited to do the work of intentional and inclusive movement building and to appeal to people of conscience.
That is Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley earlier this year on Valentine's Day, making this impassioned plea for yet a renewed push for reparations. Well, fast forward to today, and now we've got Congresswoman Summer Lee echoing similar, and Carrie Pickett has the scoop on that. Carrie Pickett is the White House correspondent for the Washington Times. She's with us right now. Carrie Pickett, tell us what's going on with reparations.
Well, you have Congressman Summer Lee, who is reviving a resolution that was brought out previously by former Congressman Cori Bush. It is calling for the U.S. to spend trillions of dollars on reparations for Black Americans, and it's looking to essentially put out the resolution references U.S. slavery, Jim Crow laws, and other racially biased laws and policies to justify spending trillions of dollars on this measure. It makes a 135-point argument for reparations, describing the enduring detriments of racism, discrimination, and violence against the descendants of slaves. It asks for a commission, essentially. But here's the thing, or actually that was Ayanna Pressley's previous legislation back in February, but they're very similar. But the thing here is that I asked Summer Lee a question during this particular presser, and I said, wait, hold on a second here. Now, is there a particular income cap that would apply to your resolution? Would it be Black Americans of all income levels, or would it be Black Americans of a particular income level? And she said, whether or not a Black American, a Black descendant of American chattel slavery, were able to break into the middle class, they were able to do that despite the harms, despite the past injustices done to them. She also said that they are not excluded from the reparation and remedies therein. When we think about who traces their lineage back, that is, again, a debate that is used to try to silence the rest of this movement. It's a distraction tactic. She said, should they make $25 an hour? Should they be paid below a living wage? Should they have been educated? Or if they're educated, does that disqualify? No, they are Black. If they are Black and they are descendants of slaves, then they were directly in the lineage of harm. So as far as she's concerned, she doesn't care if a Black American has the income of Oprah Winfrey, or if a Black American lives in the slums. They should all get reparations, and it doesn't matter if they have lineage going back to the times of a slavery. It doesn't matter if a whole Black family came from another country in the last 2 years. They should get reparations as well. It doesn't matter if someone, it doesn't matter if someone is of mixed race. Clearly, what you're describing opens it up for everybody, right? I'm thinking every Puerto Rican or part Puerto Rican person is going to qualify for that too. No. And the Cubans. The thing is, though, it doesn't matter whether or not someone has lineage going back to a Black slave during slavery times. If you are not a Black American, you don't get it. You see, That's why it's so difficult. You see, that's just it. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's a public relations ploy, right? They're trying to build support for something that they can't actually pull off. At least that's my take. What do you think? Well, you see, that's just it, is that when an ABC News reporter asked, well, hold on a second here. Right now, you're not in the majority in Congress. How do you expect to, pull this off? And her response was, we don't need to be in the majority right now. We're going to go district to district. We're going to go town to town and get our message out there. And then when the time comes, we're going to do what we can to push it out that way. But in the meantime, we're going to go all over the country. So and a road show. What we have to do. Yeah. Now, what's funny? That's pretty much the idea. Yeah. So this road show they're talking about, who else is on one? Bernie Sanders and AOC are on this Stop the Oligarchy road show. And now there was a poll last week that said that she's like the number one person to be the nominee, the Democrat nominee for president in 2028. I thought, wow, that's fantastic.
What do you think?
You know, I keep telling people that whoever emerges as the Democrat candidate in 2028 is going to be someone no one ever expected. And, you know, whoever is the early person right now is probably in a very bad place because everyone keeps saying it's going to be AOC, it's going to be AOC. Yeah, we'll see about that. You know,
What do you think
let's
about
all think about, yeah.
The congresswoman that offered the Democrat response to Trump's State of the Union, his joint address to Congress? I forget her name, but she's a senator. Do you know who I'm talking about?
You heard Alyssa Slotkin, I think it was?
Yes, Elisa
Is that
Slotkin.
who it
Thank
was?
you.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I recall when Alyssa Slotkin was in the House, and she had to sort of be very careful because her district was a very swingy district, and now she can kind of sort of be herself because that's how Michigan is. It's a very purpley state.
Yeah.
She is trying her best to bring her party back to the days of Bill Clinton, where it was, oh, I'm a new Democrat. We're not these kooky, crazy liberals.
Right.
And she's part of that struggle. She's sort of on the James Carville side. And we'll see if she's successful. I don't know. Yeah, could she possibly be in that 2028 area? We'll see. But once again,
But when you say it might be an unknown, so you mean like somebody not in politics at all?
No, not necessarily.
Just unexpected.
Just unexpected. Look, nobody expected Obama. Nobody expected Donald Trump. It's like everyone thought that
So you're talking
Jeb
about
Bush.
Stephen A. Smith?
Well, I don't know who I'm talking about, basically. What I'm saying is it's always some dark horse that comes out like, whoa, holy cow, never thought of that person. It's usually someone that no one really took seriously and came out of nowhere, because you never want to be that candidate that everyone was so sure of. And thought, yep, that person, you remember,
And then
everyone
it
thought
doesn't
it was
go.
going to be Jeb. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Everyone thought it was
right,
gonna
you're
be
right.
Jeb.
And they weren't able to do it. Carrie Pickett, I'm up against a hard break here, so I'm going to have to hold you over so we could say goodbye and tell everybody how to find you. Keep it locked right here, folks. Coming right back. Valdez with Carrie Pickett.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We're on with Carrie Pickett, White House correspondent for the Washington Times. And when she's not on the radio with us, she's hanging out around the White House, giving us the scoop on what's going on. Make sure you check out her work in the Washington Times. Carrie Pickett, tell everybody where they can find it.
Yes, come to WashingtonTimes.com. Also, you can come check out our work at over at the Twitters. You can check me out at Carrie Pickett, KerryPickett. And just check us out over on the social medias as well. So, we're all over the place. You can check out our videos as well as our awesome correspondence on Capitol Hill, as well as Justice Department.
Outstanding. Well, folks, Washington Times has been around forever. Carrie Pickett's one of the best in the business. Make sure you check out her work and follow her, I do, on Twitter at Carrie Pickett. Carrie, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
You bet. Thank you. All right, amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you. And I'll be right back for the rest of America.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, and welcome to another hour of the program. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour. We're live, we're national. Here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez, and it's Friday night. I want to talk about a bunch of things, and we're going to get to a lot of conversation on a lot of different topics, not the least of which is what's going on with cost of prescription drugs, as well as, is diabetes on the upswing? Is it on the downswing? But in the last hour, I was talking about my own ADHD because May is Mental Health Month. And next hour, we're going to be doing some mental health stuff. Dr. Lee Richards is supposed to join us. But before we get into that, I want to go back to me. I made some comments about, me being a little scatterbrained because of my ADHD. And while we were looking for some audio for a different topic, came across a very interesting piece of audio. And Count Delacula, lay it on us.
More than 11% of kids have been diagnosed with ADHD, but symptoms often persist into adulthood. And it's now estimated that ADHD affects up to 10% of adults. But in some, that condition isn't recognized until they're all grown up. Now, fortunately, with increased awareness and reduced stigma and a better understanding of what ADHD looks like in adulthood, more are being diagnosed.
And this is so true. It was true for me. I had no clue. I was a pretty good student. So it wasn't like school was an issue for me until I was an adult. It was college that was an issue for me and all that stuff. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting, and I don't know I'd ever mentioned that before. But we have some reaction to that. Calls from Atlanta, from New York, from Idaho. Let's go to Susan, Finger Lakes, New York, WGDJ. Susan, go right ahead.
Richie, I just love this. I always talk to you about hardcore politics, which is abundant. But, you started out and, I love that, you're vulnerable and sharing your own situation because it's very pervasive. So, first of all, ADHD, attention deafness hyperactivity disorder. Now, first of all, being labeled like that without the underlying issue. Now, sorry, I'm getting a little cough here.
Yep. Sorry, I hit the cough button.
So the issue that individuals, I have some of this in my family. I've experienced it. I know.
I'm pretty sure most people have it in their family somewhere. Yeah.
Well, and especially if you lived in these high energy, very high-paced, stressful
like a metropolitan
situations.
Area? Yeah.
Yeah. So what I just want to say is what I learned through my own training that I went through in integrative health and solutions. There's some very good doctors. And sometimes medication, not saying medication shouldn't be used, but you need to know that the biggest issue is when people like us, when an issue is stimulating to us, our brains are very active and productive. When we are bored, we don't get off the couch. So it's
That's
not
so
a bad
true.
thing. The labeling is very bad, especially for children.
The labeling I can't control, right? I mean, and I almost appreciate it because prior to me knowing about this, this all came about when I was getting divorced. My ex-wife told me, she's like, "There's something wrong with you," and I was like, "Yeah, I knew that. I just didn't know what it was." And my research led me to finding out about this. Actually, there's a big article on it about deficit disorders that were ripping apart marriages in the early 2000s. And I read it, and I read these symptoms, And I said, oh my gosh, that sounds just like me. And, the more I read about it, the more I wanted to convince myself that it wasn't me. So I decided to try and find an expert. And I said, well, I wonder who the best person is. And my research at the time came to a doctor at New York University, at NYU Medical, and the medical school. And he was the dean. And I contacted his office. He took my call. It was very gracious. And he said, I don't see patients anymore. I just teach at the medical school. But he said, my I don't know if it was what their title was. I think assistant provost or deputy dean. I don't know. The guy under him in the administration was still a clinical professor. And he said, and he still had a private practice in New Jersey. And I said, oh, I'm in New Jersey. And it turned out it was actually very close to where I lived. And it cost me more money than I was willing to spend, but I spent it. And I went and I got the evaluation. And it was so comforting when he said, you, sir, are a textbook case of ADHD. And he said, and I've been teaching this at NYU Medical School for 38 years. He said, you're right out of the textbook. He gave me like 3 different types of exams. And I left there feeling like $1 million. I was like, man, now I know why. And I learned more about, why I, if I'm not stimulated in one way or another, I'm not hyper-focused on anything. So I just sit there and I don't do anything. And they call it ADHD paralysis, which is kind of crazy. But you're right in the point that you made. It is one of those things. When you're driven, you're incredibly driven. And if you're not driven, you're like, am I even here? What's going on here? Who's hungry? So it's so interesting the way that works out, Susan.
So you're awesome. And you just say, you know what? It focuses us on the important, crises that we need to drill down on. Yeah, we still want to stay in relationships and do, all of we got to still have some balance, but there's nothing wrong with us, but we just need, and I use my cell phone a lot. It's like, okay, 30 minutes to do this boring task. We use these methods, and it sounds like you are too. And I got to follow up with you, Richie. Yeah, I always felt like a soulmate to you, and
that's
I love
very
that
kind of you.
Started. Yeah,
Thank
I'm going to call back about this other.
Well, I appreciate it. And stay tuned for the next hour because we've got Dr. Lee Richards calling in, and we're going to talk a lot about self-diagnosis and stuff like that. But, Susan, I always appreciate you. Long-time caller from the early days of my radio career in New York City, Susan from Brooklyn. And now she is Susan from further up in New York, and I love that. Susan, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. God bless you. Have a great weekend. And, some people, like me, we struggle with staying focused, but other people struggle with getting good reception in their home, right? They may not have a great radio or might live in an area where, the signal doesn't reach them because this show is all across the country. Not everybody gets it like, we do in the big metropolitan cities. But this is a thing. And the thing I'm talking about is the C-Crane CC Wi-Fi 3 Internet Radio. That's the solution. Here's why it's so special. It allows you to connect the CC Wi-Fi 3 to the internet, and that's it. Boom, you're ready to go. You're tuned in to over 30,000 stations worldwide, including stations that are carrying my show live. No static, no fading, nada. And you get voice-focused audio, which surpasses any smartphone that's on the market. Plus, there's no need to sign into any apps. You don't have to worry about additional monthly fees or eavesdropping microphones or pop-up ads or anything like that. And you even get a full-size remote control with this unit. So finding whatever you want to listen to, it's never been easier. Just stay in your easy chair, keep relaxing, and that's it. It even doubles as a Bluetooth speaker if you want to listen to your favorite music or listen to the podcast while you're outside in the yard doing yard work or fishing or whatever. So here's what you got to do to order one of these. And I say get one for yourself, get one for everybody that you love. At some point or another, everybody needs to be tuned into the radio. And the CC Wi-Fi 3 is available by calling 800-522-8863, 800-522-8863, or you can call, just go online, ccrane.com/rich. I'll spell it out for you. That's CCRANE.com/rich. RICH and use code RICH. When you check out, you're going to get 10% off any order where you spend $75 or more. And you can also get this on Amazon. So what are you waiting for? Go to ccrane.com/rich.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations, everybody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
But it's called Most Favored Nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world. We will get whoever is paying the lowest price. That's the price that we're going to get. So remember that. So we're no longer paying 10 times more than another country. Whoever is paying the lowest price, we will look at that price and we will say that's the price we're going to pay. Most favored nations. That's what it is. One breast cancer drug costs Americans over $16,000 per bottle, but the same drug from the same factory, manufactured by the same company, is 1/6 that price in Australia and 1/10 that price in Sweden. 1/10 for the identical product. A common asthma drug costs almost $500 here in America, but costs less than $40 in the United Kingdom. So $40 in the United Kingdom, which is where this gentleman told me he paid a small amount for his shot. But think of that. So $40 versus $500 here.
That, of course, is President Trump talking about most favored pricing. And that was just this Monday, talking about the executive action he took to achieve most favored pricing, the lowest pricing that's available to other countries. Then we go ahead and adopt that price for us. And this, of course, comes in response to his executive order of April 12th, where insulin prices were brought down for low-income patients as low as 3 cents plus a small administrative fee, and $15 is the cost of that fee for some uninsured patients, according to the fact sheet on the White House website. But this is a good thing, and President Trump has been championing this, reducing the cost of insulin, and probably by the standards of those that use insulin, maybe not quickly enough, right? Because the bills are adding up. I'm looking at a report from the American Diabetes Association, shows that there's been a 24% increase in insulin costs since 2017. So this couldn't have come at a better time, and that triples the cost of insulin over the past decade. So these are things that I think we need to continue to address and talk about, and I want to talk about them with Tim Keller. He's chairman and founder of U.S. Diabetes Care. Tim Keller, welcome, sir.
Yeah, well, it's a great evening. It's great being on the show. I've been, reading a lot about this executive order. Kind of have a lot of knowledge around it just from firsthand owning a diabetic company. We deal with prescription costs and prices and to fight every day.
Well, let's talk about the importance of this, because clearly this is something that has been plaguing America. I think we've been a very overweight nation, and that's put type 2 diabetes on steroids, if you will, over the last several decades. And only now, I think, are we in a place where we're starting to really address it effectively. What are you seeing on your end in terms of diabetes care? Are you seeing more people seeking care? Because I think diabetes is one of those kind of silent killers because of the cardiovascular disease that goes along with it, where people don't even know they're doing damage to themselves.
Yeah, so, the reality is diabetes, type 2, type 3, vascular dementia, which is now the new diabetes of the brain. Right. So these are all things that are starting to come out now. It's all insulin resistance. And the scary part about insulin resistance is insulin resistance lives in the muscles, right? So as the glucagon gets, insulin gets taken from the liver, produces glucagon from the pancreas, it uploads into the muscle. And when there's a cellular dysfunction, we're not uploading in the muscle, so that extra sugar gets just pushed out into the muscle. It can lay in the muscle dormant for 10, 15, 20 years before someone becomes metabolically diabetic. So these are things that we do through education. We make patients understand what's going on. But the problem is with that is when that lays up in the muscles dormant as insulin resistance, which is the insulin resistance is the cause of all disease state, Rich. So it causes not just diabetes, but cardiovascular issues, high blood pressure, lipidemia, dysfunction of the cellular walls, a breakdown of the body's, metabolic function from the brain to the stomach, which really are the connective.
Right.
So your brain communicates to your stomach. The stomach, basically gets metabolically dysfunction, and now we have all kinds of disease states happen, as you mentioned, heart disease, cancers. Everything that you can think of from a disease state all happens from the metabolic function of the cells being insulin resistant. So, going back to, what fixes that, right? Well, there's only one, you can throw all the pharmaceuticals you want at a patient and get them, there's no money in the cure. So westernized medicine, I think doctors have been trained to treat a symptom, period. They're not treating patients. They're treating a symptom. And then from symptomatic treatment, there's no money in a cure, so big pharma's gotten in bed with big medical and big ag, and now we have all these processed foods that are out there. So you got unhealthy fats, you got refined foods, you have fast foods, and everything in the middle aisles of the stores have hydrogenized wheat, high fructose corn syrup, processed sugar, and flour. It's literally chemically poisoning and killing us.
Man, this is not a very happy Friday, but very important information. Folks, we're on with Tim Keller. He's the chairman and founder of U.S. Diabetes Care, and we're talking about the cost of insulin, and we're about to talk about some, natural nutrition solutions, because insulin resistance is an issue that a lot of people are facing, and one that hopefully is avoidable and, in some cases, reversible. I've seen a lot of people turn it around, myself included. When I was almost 270 pounds, I had a lot of insulin resistance. And my doctor told me, you're borderline diabetic and you got to get it in gear. I've since lost around 80 pounds and never felt better. So we're going to continue our conversation with Tim Keller straight ahead. And your calls and more coming up right after that. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
You are educating the public, and the public is getting good information if they listen to your show.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A new clinical trial is showing promising results for a new pill to help treat diabetes and support weight loss. Pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly says it has engineered a pill that lowers blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetics across different doses after 40 weeks. And participants on the highest dose also lost an average of 16 pounds. So the drug is called orforglipron. It's taken daily. Let's bring in CBS News chief medical correspondent Dr. John LaPook. I say the hard words, so you don't have to. What stands out to you about the study results?
Aside from those dramatic results, I just think this is a technological tour de force. So why can't you take Wegovy or Zepbound by mouth? Right? Why do you need the injection? Well, you need the injection because if you take it by mouth, it's going to get broken down by the digestive enzymes in your intestinal tract, in your stomach. Well, this pill, which is a tiny, tiny molecule, it's a small molecule, much smaller than the Wegovy and Zepbound. It actually goes into that GLP-1 receptor, right, into a little pocket and does the same thing, basically, that the injectables do. So the fact that you can do it as a pill, I mean, think about it. Have they done that with insulin? Insulin's an injectable medication. They've tried for years to try to make it into a pill, not successful. So the fact that they were able to do that, to me, really, really stands out.
And that is a report from CBS News. Lindsay Reiser and their chief medical correspondent, Dr. John LaPook, discussing the GLP-1 pill. So you're talking about like Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, and the other ones that are all very similar, tirzepatides, semaglutide type of medications known as GLP-1s that create this thing in your brain that makes you think that you're satisfied and you don't eat as much while regulating your blood sugar. It's really quite phenomenal, the results of this stuff. And now they're saying they've got it by pill. So I want to bring our guest back in, get some reaction to that, and continue our discussion on the state of diabetes in America. Tim Keller, chairman and founder of U.S. Diabetes Care. Tim Keller, have you heard about this new drug, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I haven't heard about it. There was a first-generation drug of this. It's called Rebellis. Rebellis is from the Ozempic family. It's an oral. You start out with 7 milligrams, work yourself up to 14, then 21 milligrams over a 40-week period. And you know what? All GLP-1s are a satiety drug, right? So I call it the tricep strengthening drug. It tells you when to push yourself away from the table. You're full. The reality is, though, Rich, is that we make a GLP-1 naturally in our gut. The GLP-1 hormone comes from our gut. It's a satiety hormone that's in our gut. The problem is Americans have, over the years, we live to eat, not eat to live. So we've kind of shut off that GLP-1 natural hormone. I'm telling you, Rich, these GLP-1s, there's not a lot of study on them, right? And so they're coming out with all these fancy things. Yeah, do people lose weight? Yeah, do they have satiety and can't eat? The reason why they lose weight is because, literally if they overeat, they're nauseous and they don't eat. And so, of course, you're going to lose weight. The long-term effects and side effects from this drug, there's not enough study on a drug to really tell you the efficacy or safety of it. And everybody's on it. Even if you're not diabetic, they're on it. And everybody's losing weight from it. But I am very scared. Yeah, I'm very scared of the long-term side effects of this drug.
Yeah, hopefully you're wrong, but I think that's how I think about every drug. Every single drug, I think, that's new and very promising. I think, let's see what happens in 10 years. Let's see what happens in 15 years.
You're going to see some very reverse side effects, I think, from this drug. It's scary to me. You're taking a natural. Once again, we're stripping a natural hormone that the body makes and synthetically reproducing it, which is not normal to the body. This is what I know through lifestyle.
What's your opinion
medicine,
on why the body doesn't produce it anymore? Is it because people are fat?
Yeah, people overeat and they're not listening to the satiety hormone that naturally. Look, every person, and I've done it too. We've all done gluttony, but there's a point when we're eating that we know we're full, but the food tastes so good that we're just going to keep eating and overindulging in it until we're sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, why did I just do that?" That's that feeling that you get early on before you push past the pain, I call it. That's satiety. That's the GLP-1 natural gut hormone that's telling you that, hey, you're full. And if we're going to start synthetically putting that into people's bodies and saying, hey, we're gonna trick the brain to say that you're full before you are, and then you're just basically on a starvation diet or limited calorie diet, and everybody's losing all this massive amount of weight. I don't think, how normal is that for the body? It's not normal, and there's going to be some really adverse side effects from that.
Well, I know they've been around for about 4 years, and I've interviewed a number of doctors on this program, both, for and against. And I think they all pretty much agree that at least the last 4 or 5 years, these things have been pretty effective. Now, Tim Keller, let's talk about how people can learn more about your work and everything that you're doing at U.S. Diabetes Care? Where do they go? What's the website?
So U.S. Diabetes Care it's usdiabetescare.com. Again, usdiabetescare.com. There's a Learn More tab on there. You can learn everything we're doing from an education standpoint. Look, Rich, I tell, if you don't fix people in the mind, you can't fix them in the body, right? So
Yeah.
education's power, and no one's educating diabetics. I mean, we're throwing around a bunch of drugs and think we're changing lives with drugs, but the reality is through lifestyle medicine, exercise, drinking a lot of water, eating some more fiber, and lifestyle medicine, we're drug free. We don't have to worry about what drugs and FC are safe and not safe. Through pure lifestyle education, we can change lives of diabetics. We've reversed 72,000 diabetics of type 2, type 3 vascular dementia, gestational diabetes already. And so we know the program works. It's just, who wants to buy in and watch the education? Again, our education is a pure education platform. We're not here to entertain anybody. I'm not going to have Brad Pitt on there, giving diabetic education. This is coming from a scientific base of Loma Linda lifestyle medicine platform, the Blue Zone, delivered by an internist medicine doctor with a secondary degree from Loma Linda in lifestyle medicine. It's real simple. We're a pure education platform.
Folks, check them out at usdiabetescare.com. Tim Keller, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed on what's going on with diabetes from your perspective. And amigos, we continue with your calls and thoughts and opinions straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
This is our device called wearable optimizer.
Sometimes big breakthroughs come in small packages.
It's actually very simple. We just lift the skin up briefly and applying the side of the needle down.
It sounds simple, but the research behind it is quite complex. A team at the University of Waterloo is closer to making life more comfortable for diabetes patients.
They monitor their blood glucose level is usually using the finger prick glucometer.
A process that can be invasive. Continuous glucose monitors in the form of wearable patches that penetrate the skin have been developed before. But what's on the market now needs some work, according to this team of bright minds.
So they're using metallic and solid needles, which are long, like usually 4 millimeters, and they would go into the skin. So these are painful because they can touch the nerves.
Instead, they've developed new hydrogen microneedle patches. They're less than 1 millimeter, so when they penetrate the skin, they don't touch any nerves, allowing patients to apply the patches themselves.
The interstitial fluid is another body fluid that we have beneath the skin. It has a good resemblance to blood, especially for biomarkers like ketones and glucose and lactate as well.
The added comfort allows the patches to be worn constantly, which helps reduce the risk of serious conditions. Spencer Turcotte, CTV News, Waterloo.
So that's the latest in diabetes management, the wearable patch that monitors your blood glucose, also known as a glucometer. And overall, I think diabetes is a fascinating conundrum that we have, right? So many people that are diabetic are type 2 as of late. The type 1 is, one of those things that's, I don't want to say pernicious, but I'll say, maybe not genetic, but chronic, and you can't get rid of it by losing weight. Type 2, in many cases, you can get rid of it by losing weight. And this is something that's kind of self-inflicted, right? There's a lot of people that are in bad shape because of just bad diet, bad habits. So I find this this whole thing fascinating. because I see the challenge. I lived it, right? I was very, very overweight, and A, I didn't care, and B, I don't, like our guest pointed out, you just don't know the damage of what overeating and just being fat and eating when you feel like it, what that does to you. But it eventually it'll take your life for sure. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts and opinions on what's going on here with the cost of prescription drugs, diabetes, and everything else we were talking about. Let's go to Bill, Green River, Wyoming, KUGR. Go right ahead, sir.
Glucose as a sweetener is in the decline in our food chain. Most of the sweetening now is being done with high fructose corn syrup. And when you put fructose into your bloodstream, it goes to your liver. Your liver converts it into fat and turns it into fat and stores it away as a survival technique. That's what that fat around your gut is. It used to be fructose. Now it's fat. And the problem is that if you get enough fat around your gut, then basically it's got no place to put it anymore. So it backs up into your liver and it backs up into your pancreas. If that fat backs up into your pancreas, it's going to shut down all of your insulin production, and that's what's going to cause any future diabetic problems you have.
Yep, that was an excellent explanation of something my doctor told me back in 2017. And, it makes a lot of sense. And, again, if people don't learn about that and don't know that that's the case, they'll think that they could, have 3 and 4 cheeseburgers and wash it down with a milkshake and then go to White Castle for dessert if you don't know the outcome of that. So very, very, very good point. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it, Bill. Bill in Green River, Wyoming. Shout out to KUGR. And something I wanted to mention before we move on with some of your calls was this article, One American News. In-N-Out Burger has announced the removal of artificial dyes and sweeteners following the Kennedy announcement just 2 days ago. In-N-Out spokesperson announced that the popular fast food chain will be removing artificial dyes and artificial sweeteners to multiple items on their menu following Secretary Robert F. Kennedy's push to make America healthy again. Good for them. Good for them. Happy to hear that. Let me see. Let's continue with our conversation. Let's go to Steve in Atlanta. He wants to talk about a little domestic politics. WGKA. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Mr. Valdez.
Yes, sir.
So I really want to talk about the scumbag Comey. All right, but Tim Keller, if you have time. Do I have time for Tim Keller?
Yeah, go right ahead. Tell me what's on your mind.
So main thing is scumbag Comey. So I didn't get to listen because my goddaughter came in here, but did Kim Keller mention that Trump in his first term, he did the very same thing, but he was sued, right? He kind of did it later in his term. He was sued by
What are you talking about?
And
reducing the cost of insulin?
No, everything. Just like this one. One. He did it his first term. He was sued in court by Big Pharma, and it was in court. They dragged it out. It was in court until the end of his term when Biden was put in office, and the DOJ, as soon as he came in, dropped it. So that was over. But he did it again within his first 130 days. This time, now he can. We'll get into a court, and it has enough time now to actually go through. And it'll go in front of the, whatever. It'll go through its thing now. So I want to talk about scumbag Comey.
What's on your mind?
So I would love for scumbag Comey to have the same thing done to him that was done by the FBI. Let's get Bongino on this and another FBI agent. Let's go in just like they did to General Flynn. They did those little 302s, the little statements they make after the interview, and then they got caught in court changing their 302s, their initial statements. They got caught in court doing that. And so let's put Comey in front of a grand jury. Let's subpoena his cell phone records, his GPS minute by minute, his emails, his text messages. He used to put these shells things on his social media threads before. He's done that before. These little shell things. He's done that. He's got pictures of those. Those are all records. And you know what they say? They say that it's the process. The process is the punishment. It's the tens of millions of dollars that General Flynn had to spend, what all of us donors gave to him, and that's the punishment, to make you almost have a heart attack. And so let's put him through the same sort of – he's a scumbag. He's a freaking scumbag. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for telling us how you really feel, Steve. Steve in Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA, and I agree. I think Comey is a scumbag for doing what he did. Will I say he should go to jail? I don't know. I mean, he should go to jail for other stuff. I don't know if he should go to jail for the seashell stuff. If that is deemed a threat, then man, I better not make seashells about, any Democrats that I may not like. I don't think I would. But my point is, I don't know that that's going to rise to that occasion, but I could be wrong. Anyway, Steve, thanks for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Count, do I take a pause here and come back? All right. I'm going to take a pause, come back here. Then we're going to come back to Pedro, Paul, and some others that are on the line. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. 29 Palms, California, KVTA. Let's check in with Pedro. Go right ahead, sir. You're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Well, I told him my piece, and I'll repeat it again. I'm 81 years of age. I never had a headache in my life. Of course, I never got married either. And I never took drugs, no pills at all. And worked on dairies, hard work. I built my body up, climbed the haystacks 40 feet high. By the way, I forgot to tell him, I fell off one of the haystacks, and when the hay hook let go, and then I went right down on the gravel, never broke a bone. In Portugal, before I came over here, the Azores Islands, I was run over by a motorcycle, never broke a bone. And, a car, no car. Then in this country, a motorcycle ran me over. I never broke a bone. And I've never smoked. No cigarettes. I've never taken a pill for nothing. I haven't been to my doctor since 1970. I knew what I had. A little bit of the flu was going around. I told the doctor what I had, and he said, I'll be the judge of that. Well, he took me in the back room, examined me, and he took my blood. He goes, yep, you're right. You got a little bit of the flu. So he gives me a shot of penicillin like I told him I wanted, a box of pills. I walk out the door and threw the pills in the trash. We are over-toxicized in this country. We depend upon pills for this and pills for that. You're weak. You are a weak person when you let your body proceed and let it take care of itself, provided you take care of it, And it's kind of sad. And everything is wrong. When the White House, tell me something. I come from Portugal. How dare American people put a convicted felon in a White House?
I think that's their right? They vote, and they decided to say, hey, this is the guy that's going to be best for our country. And that convicted felon, who I voted for, he's just lowered the price of prescription drugs, and he's doing a damn good job at bringing peace all over the world. So I'd reconsider. But thank you for your call, and thanks for your kind words about how healthy you are. Amigos, we continue with your calls and more coming up straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez with an S, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you. 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Thrilled. It's Friday night. We're live. We're national. And here's the number. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. I want to talk about, the big story everybody's talking about, which is the James Comey story. And again, I didn't think that this, was such a big story, not bigger than the trillions of dollars that Trump just brought commitments for from the UAE and the Middle East trip. But that's the story. A lot of people are their panties are in a bunch. And I guess, I don't know. I don't mean to be flippant about it. I'm definitely not trying to be. I just think we're talking about a man that stared death in the face and took a bullet grazed to the ear. And he's still standing stronger than ever by the grace of God. And I'm not going to get bent out of shape about some seashells and some scumbag who we know doesn't like him. Come on. But I want you to hear what President Trump had to say about this Comey fiasco. Listen to this.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he doesn't.
Well, he
wasn't
apologized
calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision.
That is El Trumpito weighing in on James Comey. And listen, I don't disagree with any of that stuff. I'm pretty sure that James Comey, fully aware that when you're the former FBI director and you say something like 86 anything, right, let alone a sitting president of the United States who took a bullet to the ear, I'm pretty sure you know the implications of that. So, yeah, is his apology sincere? I don't buy it at all. Like I said earlier, I think he'd be a lot better off saying, look, I said something stupid. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. I do wish he wasn't our president. I do wish he wasn't around, but I'm in no way calling for him to be assassinated. Just be honest. But he won't be. Right? And this is why people are upset. And I get that. I do. But there's, I guess, I don't know. I'm from the thinking, the school of thought that there's always going to be a pendejo that wants you dead. There's always going to be one. No matter what job you have. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's people listening to this that there's people like that in your job that can't wait. Now, the difference is, are you, a massive public figure like El Trumpito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, where they'll put it in writing? Likely not. But that's the luck he's got, right? The luck of being president, and with the adulation and the all the praise and all of the pomp and circumstance that comes with this job, you get some of that hate too. Now, you do have to draw a line when the hate becomes threats, and I think that's the big argument here. Does what Comey did amount to a threat? Whether or not it's right or wrong, I can tell you right now it's wrong. It's stupid. He's a scumbag for doing it. The question is, can you lock the guy up for being dumb and stupid and being a scumbag? I don't know. I don't think you can. And this is why I tend to not have, in general, the knee-jerk reaction of lock them all up. We need accountability. I do think we need accountability, but charging everybody with treason, I don't think is the answer. It's never going to work. Those charges aren't going to stick. You've got to charge people with the right crime, and then, pursue that end if that's what you're looking to do. Anyway, that's my thought on that. I want to, we'll get into a little bit more of that, but let's see if line 1 is available. They wanted to comment on this particular topic. Boise, Idaho? Anybody home? Hello? Houston? Boise. Yeah, no Boise there. Anyway, that's my take on that. We've got a little reaction from Jim Jordan. We'll get to that a little bit later. But some of what we're going to talk about tonight, with it being mental health, I was going to say mental health care, Mental Health Month, May being Mental Health Month, is we're going to talk a little bit about mental health with our guest. Dr. Lee Richardson is scheduled to join us. She's a licensed professional counselor and founder of the Brain Performance Center. And I love talking to her because she's so chill. She's so relaxed. Compared to me, I'm like, I'm the guy that's hopped up on coffee. I'm sure you're listening to me going, you're so calm. You're so whatever. Well, if you think I'm calm, wait till you hear Dr. Lee. But these things, whether it's mental health, self-diagnosis, all that stuff, we talked a little bit about it before. I want to get her opinion on some of that when we come back. These things are important because we have access to information like we've never had before, right? We've got all sorts of, there was a time when if you needed something, you had to go to the reference section of your library and maybe pull out an encyclopedia or use the encyclopedias that you bought. That, I grew up with encyclopedias in my house. That was a normal thing. We had a bookcase, we had encyclopedias. It was a thing. And I'm sure many of you listening know exactly what I'm talking about. There's others of you that are listening that are saying, wow, no, encyclopedias are only at the library. So it's interesting how times change. But today, you don't even use the search engine most of the time, right? People don't go to Google to find their news or to find a lot of things. They go right to their favorite social media. And it's already advertising things up the wazoo there, right? You open up your Twitter, you open up Instagram, whatever it is you're opening up, you're getting sold, right? Somebody is selling you something. And that's the world that we live in. It's a very interconnected, hyper-connected world. So I get it. But with that comes the ability to start diagnosing yourself. You look in the mirror, you go, oh, I like that. Or you go, oh, I don't like that. That looks a little off. Let me see what's going on. And that's it. Next thing you know, you're running down that angle. And Lord knows I've been there. So I don't want to encourage that because it's better for you to assume you're healthy than to assume you're not. Anyway, keep it locked here, folks. We're coming right back. Dr. Lee Richardson scheduled to join us, and we're talking about self-diagnosis. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if the viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
As 8-year-old Elia blossoms into a young adult, her parents know sunlight, not a screen's blue light, will help her to grow.
I am a little afraid of what I'm going to have to face the older she gets. But I'm also realistic in knowing that this is just the world she's growing up in, so I have to have real conversations with her.
Sia Chekwa and her husband keep close eyes on the tablets their children use, but outnumbered 3-2, they worry about what slips through the cracks.
Is it age appropriate? Can someone talk to them on there? Is something going to pop up that I don't want them to see? Those are our biggest concerns.
That's a concern shared by many parents. According to the Kids Mental Health Foundation, the top fears parents have around screen time are privacy and safety concerns, exposure to misinformation, and not socializing in person.
We know that kids that spend more than 3 hours on social media a day have higher risk of things like depression and anxiety.
Ariana Howitt is the foundation's executive clinical director. She recommends explaining time limits and potential consequences ahead of time.
Kids, their brains are developing. We cannot expect them to set their own boundaries. Kids are not going to put their phone away on their own.
8 in 10 parents say they actively do something to manage screen time. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
So kids are now turning to social media to diagnose themselves with things. Now, this has been going on for a while, but it seems to be getting worse. Not to mention adults are doing the same thing. We talked about that before, and we'll touch on that again in the next segment. But right here, I want to talk about this stuff because Psychology Today has a piece asking parents, does your child think they have ADHD, autism, or anxiety? And the reason they think that is because it's all over TikTok and Instagram and the rest of their social media. I want to get to the bottom of this with the founder of the Brain Performance Center, Dr. Lee Richardson. She's a licensed professional counselor. Lee Richardson, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Now, talk to me about this stuff because I think this is a very interesting thing, interesting phenomena that we now have people that can just self-diagnose because they go online and it makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very real thing. And, many times, particularly the younger generation, they'll go to TikTok or they'll go to Facebook or they'll go to Instagram. And things just pop up, particularly on TikTok. And you'll see something and you'll go, oh, my gosh, is that me? They're talking
I have
about
that.
Yeah. They're talking about, I can't focus. I can't finish what I start. And we've all experienced a little bit of that. And
Sure.
when you're 13 years old, you're like, oh, yeah, that's me, because the brain is not fully developed. The brain is not developed fully until it's in your mid to late 20s. And the very last part of that brain to develop is a prefrontal cortex. And honestly, we need that when we're 13 years old. And we don't have it. And we see something, and we're all looking for answers. I am, aren't you? Occasionally.
Of course.
Yeah.
More than occasionally. Several times an hour, I'm looking for answers. And folks, we're on with Dr. Lee Richardson. And Dr. Lee Richardson, this is a problem that I've covered this several times. Every time they do a different study, we talk about it. And I feel like it's not getting any better, right? It was the dangers of self-diagnosis. Now it's the prevalence of self-diagnosis. And some people think that, they have this or they have that. What's your advice to parents when their kid comes to them and say, Mom, I think I'm autistic? And again, nothing wrong with being autistic. It's ideal if you are, right? We don't want you to think that you are when you're not because you saw it on TikTok.
Well, my advice to parents is to sit down and have conversation, and engage. So why do you think that? Where did you see that? And because many times where the source of the data comes from will be TikTok or, a Facebook group. And I'm not saying it's all bad data, but there's good data out there. Go to Cleveland Clinic. Go to the Mayo Clinic. Go to any university that's doing studies. And most universities are, because the brain, the most important thing you have, your biggest asset is your brain. And when you're 13 years old or 15 years old or 17 years old, what are you thinking? What are you reacting to? What is influencing your emotions? What's presenting barriers for your cognitive abilities? And you have to stop and just have reasonable conversation.
Unbelievable. It just amazes me that we're here. And again, it shouldn't amaze me because before this, it was WebMD and those other websites where you could kind of do the same self-diagnosis. Although a lot of those rely on the sources you're talking about, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, that type of thing. Sadly, that's not the case with a lot of this TikTok stuff. And when it's on TikTok versus the Google, the search engines and whatnot, they're trying to get clicks, right? That's what the name of the game in social media is building an audience and getting the engagement. So it begs the question for me, how sincere are you in, measuring and addressing these issues, or is it just a ploy to get more people involved in your social media network? So I'm skeptical about a lot of those things, Doc. But what do you say is the biggest danger of doing such a thing? Self-diagnosis.
Well, I think self-diagnosis when your brain is not fully developed, when you don't have enough information to balance it off, because we're all trying to fit in. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go back to those teenage years. I'm quite happy staying just where I am. And when you're looking for a reason, when you're looking for an explanation, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be social media. You can Google, you put in, do I have ADHD? Do I have anxiety? And it'll take you to a site, and sometimes it may be a site that's sponsored by a pharmaceutical medication.
Right.
And there'll be a little assessment that you can go in, answer these 5 questions. And they're very general questions that on any given day, we can all identify with.
Right.
But it's when you're that young and you don't know and you're looking for a reason. There can be some real advantages to having an ADHD diagnosis. You get longer test taking times. You have different access to privacy and to being able to focus and the amount of time you have to complete things. So it can be advantageous. And I honestly believe we all want to do the best we can. And if there's something that can explain why we're not doing the best we can, that all of a sudden, yes, that's me. Yes, identify with that. And I have teenagers that come in my office and they'll tell me, Miss Lee, I think, now when they get older, they call you Dr. Lee, but when they're 13, it's Miss Lee. I think that, I can't focus. I can't finish what I start. It takes me an hour and a half to finish my homework. They have a whole list of symptoms. And
and they get them off of TikTok, Instagram, and the like. Doc, we're going to pause right here because I want to come back and get your reaction to adults that are now following suit from what the kids are doing, where they're self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD. And it's an interesting thing only because I have ADHD, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? Driving, oh boy, no thank you. But on the radio, works out pretty good. So I get it. Talking about the advantages that come with it, I agree. Folks, we're coming right back with Dr. Lee Richardson, founder of the Brain Performance Center. Don't go anywhere.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
According to the National Institute of Mental Health, to be diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, you must show 5 symptoms of inattention or hyperactivity and impulsivity. For children, it's actually 6 symptoms. Now, your primary care provider or a mental health or neurocognitive specialist will probably have you fill out behavior rating scales or symptom checklists and take psychological tests that assess memory, planning, decision-making, and mood. They may also ask your partner or family members about your behavior. Now, of note, ADHD in girls and women is often missed in childhood because some girls are less likely to exhibit the hyperactivity and impulsive behaviors that many boys do.
And this is Dr. Malika, CBS New York. And I find this interesting because you got more adults now that are doing the same thing, self-diagnosing themselves with ADHD and other things, right from, a quick scroll through their smartphone. So I want to bring in one of the pros who knows exactly what's going on here. And that's none other than Dr. Lee Richardson. Dr. Lee Richardson is the founder of the Brain Performance Center, and she's our guest right now. Doc, when you hear this report from Dr. Malika at CBS News about the diagnosis being missed for some females in particular because they present differently with the symptoms, what's your thought on that?
Well, they do present differently because everybody thinks, oh, you can't sit still. You're up and down consistently. It's that hyper part of it. And a lot of times in females, that does not manifest. But it does not mean that their brain is not running all over the place. And I think that we all, the world we live in, it's constant distraction. When I pick up my phone, I can go here, I can go to Yahoo News. Oh, I can go here, I can go here. There's so much coming at us, and it's confusing. And honestly, when I think back, I've been in this field since 2005. Back then, we honestly thought, oh, it's okay. When your brain's fully developed, you'll grow out of it. And I'm horrified to think of the number of of teenagers that I said those words to, but we did not know. We really didn't understand the brain or how it developed, and we believed that. And now we know that there are 4 things that puts a brain in a dysregulated state, and that's all that ADHD is a
what are the 4 things?
dysregulated state. Okay, so first, genetics. And now we're all recognizing that, there's probably some genetics that come into play. And, 15 years ago, there was such a negative stigma associated with that, with saying anything. And the second is physical head trauma. Anytime you hit your head, you don't have to lose consciousness. It changes the way your brain's wiring and firing. And look what the NFL has shown with depression and suicide rates. And they're not the only ones, but they stick out in my mind. And then the third is emotional trauma. And I don't wish it on you, but we've all had it. And for some of us, it can start very young. It can start with a change in family dynamics. Your best friend moves away, and now you no longer have anybody that really stands with you. And the last thing is stress. And since the pandemic, we have all met stress in a totally different way.
What about your thoughts on the idea that this is a deficiency in the executive function of the brain, at least ADHD specifically, and that it just works differently? Do you find a lot of people in your practice fall into that category, and how successful are you with helping them, overcome those symptoms or find treatment?
Well, it's interesting because executive function is exactly what your prefrontal cortex is about. The back of your head is where you process information, but then you have to shift that to your prefrontal cortex. And that's the last part of the brain that's developed. It's not there until your mid to late 20s. You need it by the time you're 13. And I see a lot of people with executive function problems, and part of that is, think back to the pandemic, where we weren't able to go to school. We weren't able to sit in a classroom and logic and reason. And we sat in front of a computer, which is, honestly, I did part of my PhD program online. I had an MBA. I had been to graduate school for counseling. Never had I done that online. And it requires your brain to process information differently. And that when you're growing up and maturing, that changes your default mode in your brain.
Yeah, that gave me a headache just thinking about doing that. Kudos to you, Dr. Lee Richardson, because I don't think I could do it. I tried online learning once. It was really, really tough for me. Folks, we're on with Dr. Lee Richardson. She is a PhD, licensed professional counselor, and the founder of the Brain Performance Center. And Dr. Lee, I think the audience always, I think, enjoys these conversations, and I do, definitely. But ultimately, what's your take on the stuff that the Department of Health and Human Services has been putting out lately with respect to food dyes and red dye number 30 and whatnot, or red dye 40, excuse me, which has been linked to show a lot of hyperactivity. I know for me, I found that once I cut that out, just recently in the last year or so, I feel a lot less irritable, and I'm going to say I feel like I become less dysregulated less often as a result of removing that from my diet. But I can't prove it one way or the other.
Well, I think nutrition is the foundation of nutrition and sleep. That's the foundation of which your brain operates from. And they've come out now with, it's called a neuroprotective diet. It's looking to see what fuels your brain, what feeds your brain, and dyes and things, different things like that. They have it. We all know that medication has an impact on the brain, and for some of us, it's very, very positive, and for some of us, it has side effects or it doesn't work. And the same things that we ingest in our diet can have the same impact on our brain. I have clients that sugar is extremely detrimental for, and other clients that sugar doesn't faze them at all, as is the case with different dyes and different things. I mean, we go back 20 years ago when we read a book about eat for your blood type. We've always tried to figure out how do we feed our brain in the most productive way. And my advice to people, and I get asked a question probably every day, what's the best diet? How do I take care of my brain? And my advice is, if it comes in a bag, a box, or a can, and it's good for a couple of years, there's something in there that's probably is not going to nourish your brain.
Outstanding. Dr. Lee Richardson, I'm going to leave it there. Very good conversation. Would you please tell everybody how they can follow you online and learn more about the amazing work you're doing?
Absolutely. You can find us on Facebook, The Brain Performance Center, on Instagram, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Lee Richardson.
Outstanding. Folks, check her out. Give her a follow. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Dr. Lee Richardson, you are a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a patriot, and I'm grateful to have you on the show tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. And amigos, your thoughts and calls and so much more. I mean, so much news to react to today. New Jersey transit strike because of the rail system has brought trains to a crashing halt. No crashing, but definitely a halt. And so much more. I mean, Kash Patel announcing that the FBI is leaving Washington, D.C., or at least their current headquarters, and transferring 1,500 agents. Talk about draining the swamp. 7 inmates have escaped from jail in New Orleans. What else do we have here? Secret Service is looking into James Comey's 8647 media post. He's a pendejo. And Trump has suspended the asylum system. I mean, I've got so many. Today was just a big, big news day, and I had so many things I wanted to talk about. So I'm trying to cram it all in before we hit the break. So anyway, we're going to do that. We're going to squeeze in a few of these calls, a few stories before we wrap it up for the weekend. Keep it locked right here. I'm Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5790. 833-4-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdez with an S. Call now. 833-4-VALDES. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDES. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez keeping you company for, I don't know, another 12 or 13 minutes. But lots to discuss yet. The New York City area train stations near me, very eerily empty as the New Jersey transit strike started and brought rail service and I guess everything else to a screeching halt. And this is, when push comes to shove, this is where I start losing friends here. But I'm never a big fan of labor unions. And this is why. Because ultimately, this is a government service that we're expecting to happen every day, right? You need your bus. And for the most part, they are. I don't want to say that they're unreliable. They might be late, but they're reliable. But, come on. Because you're not liking this or you're not liking that. I think there's got to be a better way. But that's me. I've never been a huge fan of the labor union process. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that. So I won't say it again today. But I want to go to the calls. Let's go to Walter calling us from St. Augustine, Florida, WFOY. Walter, go right ahead.
Hey, buenas noches, amigo.
Buenas noches. How are you, sir?
Okay, good. Someone in that union stayed awake at night to figure out the timing on that New Jersey transit strike because tonight the MetLife Stadium has Shakira concert, the Mets and Yankees have the Subway Series, and the Knicks have the playoff games at Madison Square Garden, the big TV. And two questions, Rich. Is that the old PATH trains that's on strike? And how is it going to affect you on your travels?
Very good. Good question. Well, number one, no. The PATH trains are run by the Port Authority. So the New Jersey Transit train is actually a way bigger system, in my opinion, because if you have to get to Philly, if you have to get to South Jersey, if you've got, if you come off the Amtrak at Penn Station, Newark, or Penn Station, New York City, Herald Square, whatever, the big post office, Moynihan Station. If you get off there and want to go anywhere in New Jersey, you're jumping on the New Jersey Transit train. And guess where you're not going? Any of those places. So this is a big deal, especially for commuters that are, in and out of the city. But it's also a big deal for anybody that tomorrow's Saturday. It's supposed to be pretty decent weather. This is, like you mentioned, there's a number of big things. You mentioned the Shakira concert at MetLife, which is about 12 minutes away from my home. And I have a friend that's there. And I also have a friend that's at the Garden watching the Knicks and Celtics play. So these are just people I personally know. Imagine all the other people that are at these things that are not going to have the ability to move around, either putting them in Uber or just not letting them participate, period. So, if you're not at the game, maybe you were going to go to one of the many different eateries and bars that are near the Madison Square Garden. You're not. Yeah, you might stay local in Jersey, and maybe that's a boon for the local economy, or maybe you just don't go out at all, and then that hurts the economy. So, I think it stinks. It does stink to see that this is happening, but I get it. This is how these, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? And I get it. And that's what I do hate. I hate the game, not the players. This is a very unfortunate thing. So for me, it doesn't impact me much in the since COVID. I'll tell you the truth, because they moved this around so much during COVID, different studios, different places. I started driving a lot more to the point where, because driving to New York City used to be a thing like, who wants to do that? But during COVID, there was no traffic and there was parking everywhere. So it became a thing where, like, you know what, if you're willing to come to the city, just might as well drive. And I got used to it. And I probably won't take the train anymore. And it's a good thing I don't. They set a woman on fire on the train not that long ago. It's really a war zone. It's not what it once was. And you're probably safer walking during the daytime. So I say all that to say I'm not messing with too much New Jersey Transit these days. So for me personally, thank you. But everybody else, a lot of people do rely on it. And I would love for it to be there for them the way it was there for me when I was sometimes the only air talent that showed up to the studio when I worked at WABC in New York City during the pandemic. That was a big deal. And how did I get into New York? New Jersey Transit bus. And then from there, I would either take a train or I'd walk. So it stinks to see that people are going through that. Walter.
Always a pleasure, Rich. Appreciate all your expertise, and have a good night.
You too. Thanks, and have very kind words, and I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. And have a great weekend. And let's see. We'll go to Ohio and New York. As soon as we come back, don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, Friday night. Let's go to Canton, Ohio, WNIR. Checking in with Debbie. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how are you?
Wonderful,
this is a really, really hot topic for me. First of all, I want to get kudos to RFK, getting rid of the food dyes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Yes.
Me too.
Get rid of that. That's killing us. That is killing us. He needs go. And I want to tell you, a few years ago, I was put on Medicare. I had, I turned that age, and I had, I avoided a doctor. I haven't seen a doctor in 15, 20 years.
Good for you.
Didn't want to. And finally they called me and they said, hey, you put our name down as your provider. You better come in and see us or we're going to take you off our list. I said, all right. So I went in. And you know what they told me?
What?
They said, hey, Debbie, you're pre-hypertensive. You're pre-high this. You're pre-everything.
Yeah.
I said, well, but I ain't nothing, am I? I'm pre-everything. We're all pre. Don't you try to push your drugs on me. You will not succeed.
Well, Debbie, I'll tell you, I had a similar experience in 2017. After my dad died of a stroke, I said, you know what? I hadn't been to the doctor in about 5 or 6 years. I was fat as all get out. And I went and I told him, how am I doing? And he was like, you're doing horrible. You're going to die just like your dad did. No lie. And I was like, what are you saying? Come on. Why'd you say that? And he was like, because you don't eat good and you blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he said the same thing. You're pre this, you're pre that, you're pre that. I should put you on all these meds. And I said, or you change your diet, you implement exercise, and you stick with it. And I didn't think I could do it. Neither did he. But I did. And here I am 80 pounds later and 80 pounds lighter. And I'm thankful that I didn't have to take all those drugs, the statin drugs. Debbie, thanks for the call. Jane, thanks for the call. Amigos, hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.